Welcome to the Paradise Paradox. I'd like to talk to you again a little bit about Scientology. Scientology, often much maligned ideology or school of thought, but we have our inside man, Bobaphet, who spent a few years in the Church of Scientology, and he can give us a little insight into what he learned about speaking authoritatively, also about dealing with past trauma, the auditing process, and also about the irony of not being allowed into the Sea Org because he was previously a sailor. So we'll get into all that. Thanks so much for listening to the Paradise Paradox. Remember to check out my new channel, Cryptonomics. Search for it on Facebook, on YouTube, and also check out Bob's page on Steemit. Bobaphet, Bobaphet. So check that out. Thanks for coming along for the ride. Let's get into it. Do you have an opinion about Freemasonry?
Let's go right back. Again, synchronistically, when I was in the Navy, in basic training, so again, probably 16, 17, maybe 16 or 17, one thing we used to do, we were a captive audience, I guess, for local community groups for debutante balls for various girls' schools and so forth in the area.
Okay.
So one benefit of that is I learned how to dance.
Yeah.
But I used to go to debutante balls, and one particular debutante ball was hosted by a Freemason group. I got talking to, I don't know, whatever the Grand Poobah, whatever the official title is.
Grand Dragon.
Yeah. Because my initial reason for getting to the debutante balls, I was never really interested in dancing like that, but we used to get out of duties and get off the base an extra night because under 18, under training, during weekdays, if you have leave, we used to call it Cinderella leave, you had to be back by midnight.
Oh.
On weekends, in order to have a weekend off the base, you needed a sponsor. It had to be approved by your parents. And so that if you without a sponsor, you still had to be back by midnight every night. And I had a couple of sponsors over in New South Wales. One was actually an old friend of Dad's from Army days. He also just happened to move to Australia, and they kept in touch. He was on the East Coast, and it was great. They actually lived out in Auburn, and the Navy base was in Quakers Hill, which is near Blacktown. And it was great because he didn't give a fuck. So I just used to go around there a Sunday afternoon, and he would just sign the sponsorship form to say, I'd been there all weekend type thing. I could do whatever I liked, that kind of thing. But
Cool.
The debutante balls, and leave during the week. It was only Wednesday nights. Wednesdays we had leave, but we had to do that by midnight. So an opportunity to get off the base during the week was a good opportunity. So that's why I actually went to the debutante balls.
Yeah.
There was never any chance of hooking up with the girls, like none at all.
Why not?
Strictest to supervision at these things, man. Strictest to supervision.
No stealing a kiss.
Yeah, like that would be something you'd go back and talk about. Wow, I actually managed to get a kiss. It was highly, highly supervised.
Right.
But yeah, one of these debutante balls was run by Freemasons, and again, because I was still interested, I asked a lot of questions. And because of my age, the only way, because I was interested, I wanted to know more type thing. The only way you could get in under 18 was to be sponsored by an existing member type thing. And like Dad was in the Army, so I think it was Buffaloes, I think they were called or something. It was like a less cultish sort of fraternity ship type thing that was okay for the Army type thing. It was all Army guys type thing, Army fraternity, or the Buffaloes. So yeah, there was no opportunity to get in to the Freemasons, but that was like my first contact, I guess you'd call it, with Masons. And then after that, in the 90s, when I was selling insurance, one of the insurance agents there was a Mason, and he invited me to come along to a dinner one night. And it was like, the only reason I couldn't go on that, it was such short notice because it was a tuxedo event and I didn't have a tux, and to rent one and total up, it just didn't work out type thing. But he stressed like the networking opportunities within as a fraternity, and even though that didn't develop anywhere, that's one thing I definitely recognize both my time in the craft and the OTO is the insider opportunity. If a brother or a sister is in a field like and there's an opportunity, you would, regardless of qualifications or other things, like you would get the position, or opportunities were definitely available to you within fraternity. So the networking opportunities in these tight groups is real. And
I remember one story when we were looking into that free man on the land stuff and how to behave in court and this sort of thing. There was one story that came up, and a guy had some parking fine or something, and he was trying to dispute it, asking all these questions and everything. He didn't think about it, but he had his little Freemason pin on his lapel, and at the not intentionally, but that's what ended up happening. The magistrate said in his ruling, he was like, "Well, I see you're a brother," and he dismissed the case. So he didn't even, he never even had to fight.
yeah, that's real.
Then you got into Scientology. When did you get into Scientology?
Carpet call.
Okay, fair enough.
My first position as a sales person there was at a store where the manager was a member of Scientology. He stuck in a store together all day, like he talked. So it was obvious to him that I was a seeker. I was like looking, but he didn't want to dump the S word on me and scare me off type thing.
Okay.
So just a little bit by just little like feeding pigeons type thing. You don't charge at them and try and shove food down their throat. You just throw out a few crumbs, and each time you throw them closer and closer type thing. And he definitely piqued my interest in some areas. And by the time he did drop the Scientology, it's like Amway type thing. You don't say Amway. Business opportunity, the business. You don't say Amway. Scientology was very much like that. By the time he did actually drop the Scientology word, I already had a pretty good idea what it was. So he introduced me along, and I went along to the Perth org, and they got introductory level courses, like $80 courses or $100, 80 to 120 type thing, and they're like sort of basic level courses. And if you've ever been stopped on the street to do the personality test type thing, where they try and get you to do a course, and if all else fails, they'll sell you a copy of Dynetics.
Right. Well, I actually went in there to the Melbourne org years ago just to try to sniff it out. They gave me that Oxford capacity analysis, and I asked them, "Is this related to Oxford University?" And they're like, "Oh, I don't know." It's not.
The actual new on staff, one of the first things you do is out on the street personality test. So the people you're talking to and that really don't know much about Scientology. But Dynetics auditing, I have read the book Dynetics. It took me about 7 or 8 readings because it is a hardcore read.
Yeah, well, it seems at some points it seems like the ramblings of a madman. At other points, it seems very clear and very sensible. That was my experience.
Most geniuses, the word genius and eccentric sort of go hand in hand, don't they?
Right.
So I'm pretty sure Ron Hubbard was onto something.
Okay.
But, whether it was moments of lucidity or whether there was other things intertwined with it, basically the guy wrote tomes and tomes. The library of shit that he wrote, like you've got to have some clue to be able to do that. You can't be a fuck and produce coherent stuff at that volume. Yeah, Dianetics is that actually piqued my interest as a science because it works on a cellular level. It works on the dynamics of areas that I was interested in. And of course, the can test. When you hold two cans, and that, like they have what's called the pinch test. So, like, they get you to hold the cans, and they just pinch you, and the needle goes woo, and then they go, okay, think about when I just pinched you, and the needle goes woo. Okay, think about it again. Woo. Think about it again. Woo. Think about it again. Woo. Think about it again. Nothing.
Yeah, so, it's like exposure therapy to your own memories. Yeah,
exactly. And what they have is an engram. And an engram is a memory that has emotional charge attached to it. And because of the emotional charge, it's not accessible to the file manager program that sorts through and collects data from your memories. It's kept separate. So the Dianetics process is designed to remove the emotional charge so that that memory can be filed away simply as a memory without any emotional attachment to it. Being an electrician in the Navy through the 80s, I immediately recognised that what they call the E-meter as a Wheatstone bridge meter. We used to use those for measuring electricity, and also modern applications of lie detectors and so forth. So there was enough there that interested me.
Yep.
So I did the first course I did was, I think it's called Ups and Downs in Life course. It was like an $80 course. I did a couple of courses, and to their credit, I've got to say, like, they were good. For $80, I got a lot of value out of those. Okay. It's good. Scientology are very grammatically precise because we have a lot of ambiguous words in our language, and Scientology has a lot of colloquialism within it so that they are very accurate with what they're talking about. And I've carried a lot of that forward with me since then too. Like, for example, their word for spirit is a phaeton from the Greek. And the reason for that is because the word spirit has so many meanings in English language that so they're very precise with the language that they use.
But what's the etymology there? Why is it theta? Like, it's related to the letter theta, right?
It's the root. I'm not sure that the full etymology of it. The Greek root word for theta is spirit. But they use theta
fair enough.
Spirit. Yeah, or etheric, I think is.
I see.
Yeah, is more sort of relative English or Middle French deviation through to English.
Yeah.
From that, I did a couple of those courses and gained a lot from them. And bear in mind, like, this is the 90s, so I was in sales. So those kinds of sales back then, the manipulation of the direction of flow where the conversation was going was key in closing a sale. So the courses were quite beneficial to me. And one of the first major course that I did with Scientology was a dual course. They sold it together as a package. It was TRs on objective training routines and objectives, and the purification rundown. Sold as a dual package. Purification rundown was basically mega dosing on vitamins and sweating it out in a sauna.
Okay.
And I actually, through that process, got quite high, quite stoned, sitting in a sauna, simply through the detoxification process of stuff trapped in your body at a cellular level being released. You pee it out eventually, but during the release process, it's active. Whatever its active components are active in your bloodstream. And the training routines was particularly interesting, and it's what's called drilling, where for example, I can't go too much into this because someone listening or watching this could be influenced by the strength of this, but it's a set of instructions that you can give in such a way that not following the instructions is not an option that the person considers.
Okay. So this is something like in sales where you do a an alternative clause? Like I say, all right, so do you want to sign up with us for a free years of newspaper, or do you want to sign up to get the discount?
Well, that's a false dichotomy. That's a false dichotomy you're offering someone there. This is more, you're not actually giving them a choice. You're giving them an instruction that it doesn't to them to not follow.
Wow.
And it's all to do with the delivery and the tone. In fact, Scientology has something called a tone scale, and tone 40 is the top of that. If you deliver an instruction at tone 40, the person receiving it will always obey it without any conscious realization that they've done so.
So it sounds like something from neuro-linguistic programming, like
close
breaking rapport, that sort of thing.
It's an instruction. It's an instruction. And the closest thing would probably be like from Frank Herbert's Dune, with the more deep sort of thing, like when delivered correctly. If I was to give you an instruction with tone 40 intention, and in such a way that you would just do it, and it wouldn't even occur to you that there was an option not to do it, or that you'd even followed it unintentionally.
Right. So we're not talking about like just somebody who was in the church and who respected your authority or something like that. We're talking like you could do this to anybody and they would obey you. Yes. Regardless of the command, or certain types of commands.
If you can master tone 40, it would be regardless of command. But whilst you're mastering that and your own personal skill level, obviously the command that you give and the person's belief would affect, like, for example, I might say, Kurt, make me a coffee, and that would be, you wouldn't be a big thing. You go and do that, right? I'd say something like, go kill yourself, and you're like, you wouldn't. So there's that level of in that, but true delivery of tone 40, like, it's irrelevant to your belief. It will always be obeyed. And we used to drill those instructions and start with basic stuff, like instruction might be something like, look at that wall. Right. And when you deliver in that sense of the training routine, acknowledgement is very important too. Mm-hmm. So you look at the wall, I would say, thank you. Right. Or if you looked at the floor, or you looked at the ceiling, or you looked at something other than the wall, there's no acknowledgement. There is only a repetition of the instruction. And this would be drilled and drilled and drilled and drilled. And it's one of the first introductory things that new staff members do for when they're out there in the public trying to get them in to buy the courses and buy the books and so forth.
Okay.
But so there's definitely axioms within Scientology, like if you do this, then that are 100%.
Wow. But now, it does remind me of that scene in The Master. Have you seen The Master?
I don't think so.
Okay, so it's a movie based on L. Ron Hubbard. I don't think they explicitly say that it's meant to be about him, but
I've seen The False Prophet or The Prophet or something.
Oh, okay. I don't know that one. This one has Joaquin Phoenix. But there's one scene where Joaquin Phoenix is like the initiate into Scientology, and the L. Ron Hubbard, or the character, is telling him, look at that wall, run back, run to the fireplace, run to the desk, and this sort of thing. Watching it, it wasn't very clear what was going on in that scene. Yeah, so that opens up some interpretation.
And the basic level is like level 1, level 2, level 3, and you go level 0 is, again, a key skill. You just simply sit across from someone, probably a foot apart. So you and I would be sitting across from each other in chairs, just looking at each other.
Yep.
Level 0 is done with the eyes closed. And it's just for you just to be comfortable. Just comfortable sitting that close to someone else.
Okay.
And level 1 is with your eyes open. So we'll be sitting close, like a foot probably, just chairs close together, just looking at each other. Of course, the natural reaction to that is to giggle and laugh, and you just where you can be 100% perfectly comfortable and not completely not in effect of being that close, and just basically staring at each other without smiling, without giggling. And then it goes up to where you start issuing commands or asking questions. And like, no, I might say, you know, do fish swim? You can answer with either yes, no, or I don't know. They're all legitimate answers to the question.
Yeah.
But if you were to say anything else that is not a legitimate answer to the question, I would just repeat the question.
Right.
But if you would say yes, no, or maybe, then
so if I say, why are you asking me about fish?
I'll repeat the question. Why do fish swim? Let's run this for a sec, see if it works.
Okay.
So, why do fish swim?
Why do they swim? Or do they swim? You're asking, okay. They swim because...
Why do fish swim?
They want to get somewhere.
Thank you. Why do fish swim?
It's in their nature.
Thank you. Why do fish swim?
They have to get through the water.
Thank you. Why do fish swim?
They just want to.
Thank you. Why do fish swim?
They have the ability and the drive.
Thank you. So in each of those responses you gave, they are actual answers to the question. So I acknowledge your answer with a thank you. But it reaches when you go, oh, look, this is ridiculous. How many times have you do that? Why are we doing it? Then instead of acknowledging you and saying thank you, I would say, I'll repeat the question. Why do fish swim? And that's actually like a running a routine. And the gradient increases. And the gradient of resistance, because you're practicing with a twin, as they call them, the gradient of resistance would increase throughout to the point. And then later on, you're actually giving people like, no, touch that wall, touch that wall, touch that wall. And thank you. And to the point where someone say, no, I'm sick of this. And you would physically move them to the wall, physically take their hand and touch. So you're physically forcing them to touch the wall. And then you would say, thank you, because they've actually touched the wall.
It sounds sick.
You would run these for hours. But it develops the tone for the intention. So, and like, if you unwittingly, a person comes across you and you give them an instruction like touch that wall, they will touch that wall. I have no idea why they've obeyed you or touched the wall, but they will do it. And again, I was being in sales at the time. It was quite a good course that I did.
Yeah.
And with my interest in the esoteric and background, I was a complete sucker for the Star Wars saga. The Sea Org, the sci-fi sort of side of it. And we had a recruiter from the Sea Org come over from Sydney and did a talk, and him and I had a chat afterwards, and we talked a bit and so forth, and I signed up and joined the Sea Org. And they booked my flight for me, and I was to leave the next day. And like I got back home and said to my housemate, who was also in Scientology, and I've just joined the Sea Org. He's like, oh wow, what about your cat? I was like, oh shit. And I had a job. I was the recipient of this time for it, and I signed.
So they'd actually said to you, contract. Join the Sea Org, and you said, yep.
At some point, I guess.
Okay.
I'd already sort of developed along in the company. I had a very high interest already.
Right.
But they literally booked a flight for me, and I joined. So, and I remember when I flew over to Sydney and went to the advanced org out at, was it Glebe or Ryde or somewhere out there, and I spent the day there. But because you're not in yet, you can't stay the night with the other Sea Org members. So they have a hotel halfway house type thing that's run by Scientologists, and you stay the night there. I remember the line that all I could think about that night was my cat. I'd had my cat for probably 8 years. This was Missy. I had her for 15 years. I was actually living at Link's folks' place when she died. But and like I hardly slept all night. All I could think about was my cat, and like that was probably an emotional tie that they hadn't got to or hadn't recognized or realized. And it was like it was the last thread that I had that, and I was like that night. I was like, "Fuck, what have I done?"
Yeah.
Because my cat was really close to me. Like she was scared. Like anyone came visiting, you know, she's off under the couch, like hiding type thing. You know, she was a real skinny sort of cat. I think like someone else said that they'd look after her, and I'm thinking, but like it was the one thing that sort of I still had an emotional tie to. That thinking, what the fuck have I done? I've got to get out of this somehow. 2 million years or 7 million years or whatever the seal contract is.
Billion years or something. Billion-year contract.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah.
And anyway, the next day, so I had all this on my mind, and I had my auditing session the next day with the Class 5 auditor. Class 5 auditor is a person who definitely owns their space. During the auditing process, like we went through some of my background in the Navy, and actually came up because of my security clearance within the Navy. It was like, and the auditor went off and came out, and then I had a meeting with the CEO or the captain or whatever the rank the Sea Org. But it's like, well, you actually can't join the Sea Org. There's two things I think, or three things that are really strong. You can't. One of them is if you ever take an LSD, some other psychotropic drug, but LSD in particular, you cannot join a Sea Org. And another one is if you've had a high security classification within the government. Another one is if
because they think you're a double agent.
Don't know the full, because probably you've already had a degree of brainwashing. So they don't have to just brainwash you. They've actually got to uncondition your previous brainwashing, quite possibly.
Yeah. But it's like they say, once a spook, always a spook. That's what they're worried about. Yes.
And also the third one, and quite possibly for the same reason as the second one, is if you've ever had psychiatric treatment or taken psychiatric drugs, you cannot join the Sea Org. So I got out of that, and basically it was like, well, thank you very much.
Well, lucky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like, okay, so I'm in Sydney. How do I get back? Oh, well, that's your problem. I had no money. I just left on impulse, so I'm in Sydney, no money at all.
Okay.
And one of the ones lived near there was kind enough to like, I can drop you off at the airport.
Okay.
So I made a couple of phone calls, and actually my upline direct in Amway at the time, I said, look, I'll transfer you some cash.
Yeah.
So she transferred me some cash cleared, and I was able to buy a ticket. And Sydney Airport is not a 24-hour airport. They actually like close at midnight, or they did then anyway, at midnight. So I was basically sleeping on a bench outside the airport when the security came on and said, like, you can't do this. So inside security wouldn't let me in, but outside security and inside security had a conflict of interest, and duty of care won, and they let me in. So so I got to sleep on a bench inside the airport as opposed to sleeping on a bench outside the airport until my flight the next morning. So that was my day in the Sea Org. One day.
Okay. So at that point, did they kick you out of Scientology, or you still continued? Okay.
Yeah, just could not be a member of the Sea Org.
Fair enough.
And I actually got back to Perth because before I joined, I was actually the deputy executive director of the Perth Org. At that point, that was the final straw for me. I'd had enough. And so they offered me all sorts of stuff, and they even said, look, we will train you through the training course to Class 5 auditor, because they knew that was a guy I wanted to be an auditor. And that was like, if they had offered me that any time previous to that, I would have leapt at that. But it was like that. So that was like the best that they could do at this point, was to offer to train me for free to Class 5 auditor. And I knocked it back. And that was the end of my Scientology.
Okay. Well, let me ask you something about that auditing process are about asking the questions and giving commands. So is it intended to be training for both people or just for the person giving commands?
The drilling that you do, you're both on the course. And so when you do this particular course, you do it with what's called a twin. So two of you must do the course together, and you take it in turns for the drilling of the exercise, which is why you're able to increase the gradient of resistance as you go further and further along. But the goal of that is for real-world application at the end of your course.
Yeah. What you were saying about Tone 40, it does make me think about when I used to do door-to-door sales. And in the beginning, I was very uncomfortable telling people what to do. But at my best, I would just be like, yeah, go grab your phone bill. Go grab your driver's license. Let's get this set up. And I remember saying to my boss one night, I said to him, people just do what you tell them to. And he's like, yeah, they do.
Yeah, they do.
It blew my mind.
They do.
Yeah. So there's definitely something to that.
And just think, you're spending 4 hours a day drilling that. Go get your phone bill.
Yeah, well, I did.
and through the course, and you also, with the way, another benefit of training with your twin, it reaches a point where you no longer expect someone to say no.
Of course,
and that's
yes.
delivery of intention. When you just know that they're going to do it, it doesn't even occur to you that they might not say no. They don't say.
Yes.
If you're worried that they might say no, they might say no. But when you know that they're not going to say no, they don't say no.
Yes. Yeah, people do comply with your expectations. It is very strange. I guess
you have the matrix and statutory regulations and all the crap that goes along with the society is able to function so well, with so few in control of so many, that they know this already. They know the data and they use it to their advantage.
Yeah, that's true.
Tax collectors in blue uniforms are just a deterrent that they've already understand, and through the conditioning with media, TV, propaganda, and so forth, that is just cream on top of the cake. But they recognise that generally people need instruction, and especially at the state of fear, and the greatest fear ever is always the fear of the unknown. People are hungry for instruction. So, but it must be delivered with confidence, the authoritative, the respect for authority that's conditioned into people. You must be able to deliver yourself in that manner, and people are hungry to be instructed.
Yeah. It makes me think of the Milgram experiment as well.
Don't know that one, then.
Oh, okay. You might be familiar. The Milgram experiment, Stanley Milgram was the fellow's name, I think. He had this experiment where he wanted to see how compliant people would be. And he would tell them that there was someone in the next room who was going to be shocked with electricity. And then you had the participant who would turn up the dial, and Milgram or his employee would be there saying, turn it up, turn it up. It is imperative that you continue. The experiment demands that you continue, and this kind of thing. And they found that, I think, with his experiments, they found something like 65% of people would take it all the way.
It's a fatality.
Yes.
Yeah.
I do have my criticisms of that experiment, because you can kind of tell, like, they're playing a recording of the guy going, please, no, don't help, don't put it any further. And you can tell that he's acting, sort of. So I could understand why people would be thrown off by that. But on the other hand, I find it very interesting that 35% of people refused. 35% of people will be like, no, I'm not going any further. That's it. This is ridiculous. So I think that does say something good about humanity. Like, they're willing. Yeah. So there are these people out there who are willing to say no when they see something bad happening.
I have heard of that. I just didn't know the name of it.
Right.
So.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought you would have. What do you think the key lessons that you learned from Scientology are?
I think the most I've ever learned from any field, not necessarily just Scientology, is what the lack of limitation or your own personal ceiling is self-imposed. And presented with some information or avenue, whether it's ritualist, whether it's magic, whether it's divine will, whether it's training through conditioning, whatever the stimulus is, the fact is once you accept and can take on board that it is possible for something to happen, it can happen. So the only limitations I've ever had on any field are self-imposed, and they are self-imposed through external force of education. It's a belief that has at some point been presented to me that I've accepted as real.
Yeah.
And all of my limitations, including the ones that are still limiting me, that I still have to work through, I still believe that all of my limits have been put in place for some point in the past, whether it's this life or beyond, that I've accepted as real. I've believed the source of information to be real. I've taken it on board as an axiom, and it's therefore real for me. But each time I'm presented with information to the contrary and I can accept that, then that limitation is gone. And I think through the magical orders, through the craft, Scientology, all of those, it's enabled me to witness and accept new levels that have broken down my own limitations. Ganesha, Lord Ganesha, the remover of obstacles. It's like Ganesha is I mean, it's interesting in Hindus, like regardless of their chosen deity, like most opening ceremonies are first in adoration as a devotee to Ganesha to remove.
Because they want things to go smoothly.
Yes, but to remove the limitations of your belief. And you're going to do something like, will this work? But this, but that, but this. It's like, no. Like you're getting all that. So you're trying to remove your own personal limitations so that what you want to do can actually go as far as possible without limitation.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Well, I think that's a good note to finish up on. Did you have anything else you wanted to say?
No, but
that's good.
I wouldn't have even known where to start anyway if you hadn't been prompting me with questions. So
that's good. Yeah, I think we've got out a lot of interesting stuff that's in your head there. So, of course, people can follow you on steemit.com/@Bobaphet. How do you spell that?
PH, like hip hop, PH instead of F. So just think Star Wars, Bobaphet, but instead of F, it's PH. So BOBAPHET.
Yeah.
Bobaphet.
Yep, great. So you can check out your writings there, and you write some stuff about archaeology, and you make some funny videos and all sorts of stuff.
All sorts of stuff. Comedy,
spiritual
academic,
journeys, and
spiritual.
Yeah.
Sometimes just chewing the fat, as they say.
Yeah. Chewing the Bobaphet.
Yeah, chewing the Bobaphet.
Great. Thanks so much, Bob. It was great talking to you. It was a very interesting conversation.
Adios, hermano.
What?
Adios, hermano.
Gracias, hermano.
Thanks so much for listening to Bob and what he had to say and the Paradise Paradox. Remember to check out Bob on Steemit. He produces some funny videos and also some writing about archaeology and spiritual things. So check that out on Steemit, Bobaphet, BOBAPHET. So check that out. Also remember to check out my new channel, Cryptonomics, Principles of Cryptocurrency and Investing. You can check it out on Facebook, on YouTube, on your favorite podcasting app. Stitcher, iTunes, whatever you like. Whatever you like. It's an open smorgasbord, open slather. Choose any podcasting app. You'll find it on there because you can get it on Anchor. So thanks for subscribing to my new channel. Thanks for listening. Take care. I'll speak to you soon.